Coogs House, the Houston Cougars look to have a big year two in the Big 12, but who's going to be making the plays for those Houston Cougars that we're all cheering for?
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. If you join the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us if you won that lottery. We asked you yesterday what you would spend it on, but would you take the larger lump sum to start that's not quite all the money, but you get it all at once? Or are you going to ask the government to pay you out over 20, 30 years? Today's show is brought to you by a number of people. We'll talk about it in a second, but we got a lot of things to get into. I want to address a question from a commenter yesterday that actually looked some at the roster, and I want to talk some about what potential redshirt guys could step up for the Houston Cougars next season in their redshirt freshman years. I want to look some at who the big fellas are going to be blocking for those guys. We talked a lot about the skinny folks on this program, but got to give some love to the big fellas up front and talk about what they look like as a unit right now. But first, I want to talk about some recruiting news on the hardwood that I think I may be the only one dialing into a little bit, but that is one, Liam McNeely. Now, Liam McNeely is a 6'7", 6'8", 210-ish pound kid, originally from the DFW Metroplex, currently goes to Montverde Academy. Been playing the academy circuit for a while now, if I'm not mistaken. And this came up because a lot of people are harping on his recruitment. He is at the McDonald's All-American game in Houston. Game's being played at Toyota. I guess actually might be. Anyway. And as a McDonald's All-American, people are talking to him as media and stuff like this. Where are you going? Because recently, as a 5-star plus potential one and done, definite future pro kind of prospect, he withdrew his commitment to Indiana, asked them to let him out of his national letter of intent. And, Houston wasn't necessarily that high on his initial recruitment, but he keeps listing a handful of, like a short list, 4 schools, 5 schools that are recruiting him now. He's, not going to go to Indiana, and Houston continues to be on that list. I want to stress again, the kids from DFW, Houston is the only school in the state of Texas on his short list. Now, obviously, we talked about a couple days ago at this point, the Houston basketball roster is somewhat in flux with guys deciding they want to take the COVID year, go pro, et cetera, et cetera. But McNeely's the kind of athlete at 6'8", 210 that you can't turn down. He is a fantastic catch and shoot jump shooter, pump fake, dribble right, left, jump shooter off, movement. He does all the running off the screens, on the break, etc. Great, great, great shooter. But I don't want to stereotype him and pigeonhole into that shooter role. He's also really quick to, when he gets a smaller guy on him, back him down, work him down to the block, and finish through contact. He's got an effective handle. He's more like makes a decisive move and goes. He doesn't do all the side-to-side tricky kind of stuff, but he makes a move and goes, right? He showed on a great Montverde team with some of the top guys in the country. He's shown great effective decision-making and passing, puts the ball up at the rim for lobs, has great backdoor cuts, et cetera, et cetera. I think, though, the thing that makes him a Houston Cougar, or at least a great fit for the Houston Cougars, although I would point out the offense fits. He fits well in the offense. Again, the offense fits. He's a growing defensive prospect, right? He's getting better as the days go on. He's become a pretty good help side defender at the rim. He's got some good length. Timing's gotten better. He's decently long as far as his arms go and stuff like that. Again, 6'8", 210, cover a lot of different positions. But you see a lot of clips with him playing through fractures in his face. He had a face mask on, both the one across his nose and eventually one around the whole circle of it, to protect himself with injury, but was diving on the floor leaping into the crowd, going after loose balls with his face injured. And that kind of play through pain, no regard for your those things translate to what Houston does defensively. The same tenacity you see like a Ramon Walker play with, or a Corey Davis once upon a time play with. Like those kinds of moments are hard to teach. You just kind of have that in you, or you don't. And Liam has shown at times at Montverde to have that. Now, we saw Houston develop Cryer into a pretty strong defender. I would argue that Jarris Walker was a much better defender by the end of his time at Houston than he was at the beginning in his single year, obviously. List goes on and on. Jamal Shed just got NABC Defensive Player of the Year, was Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year at a very, it was about 6 foot point guard. I mean, that's nearly impossible. I think McNeely's shown the attitude with the athleticism he's got to be mixing the thing here in Houston and make him a defensive guy. I mean, if you're looking at getting to the pros, he's got the offensive skills. That's what's he going to do to get better on defense. Work with Sampson's going to be a way to get that done. I mentioned he fits in the offense, and I think that's the thing I said on Twitter that people said, "What are you talking?" People didn't understand what I was talking about there, and that's fair. I only get 280 characters, whatever. Alon's got it out now, right? I think there's a couple things. One, shooting, catch and shoot. We saw how valuable that was for guys getting downhill to have both Sharp and Cryer on the court when Jamal was trying to get downhill, right? Having the spacing of the shooting at a 6'7", 6'8" spot would be tremendous. You can go small, put him at the power forward spot. You can go big and have a big back line of a zone. We don't see Sampson go to zone a lot, but if you had a 6'7" small forward, you might see a little bit more, right? He also, for what it's worth, again, I think the thing that he does that fits in is that if the mismatch is his and he's got the size advantage, he's going to put his hip into a guy and back him down. And I think we don't see that a whole heck of a lot because, frankly, Houston opts to play fast versus big when they do. But we've also seen them have success when Tremont Mark did that. We've seen them have success when Quentin Grimes did that. Liam's bigger than both those guys, right? But when you can get those guys into mismatches and spots where they can do that backing down, I think it's effective broad strokes. I think that's something anyone should be teaching their small forward to do once they've got their perimeter skills. Obviously, it's okay, let's get back to the old school base of the post game, because if you're just a perimeter guy, I can put a 6'3" guy on you and it doesn't matter, right? And B, I think we've seen Sampson identify those matchups and exploit them in the past in a way that I think he could use Liam McNeely in the same kind of highlighted way to go about it. We're still figuring out who's going to play point guard next year. If Jamal Shed goes pro, obviously it means we got to have some sort of a changing of the guard, and that may schematically be more important. But if you're going to go with somebody you've already got on the roster, Cordell, LJ, even Emmanuel, you're going to need to move some pieces around. I think that's where McNeely fits in so well. Cons would be, I'd imagine leaving Indiana. First of all, I'd point out he was Indiana's only high school recruit in the class of 2024. So they're in a whole world of hurt right now. I'd imagine he's looking for NIL kind of stuff and seeing that Indiana maybe not as a program the place he wants to be for a year, and kind of testing the waters. I also think it's worth paying attention to out there. If Johnny Furphy declares to the pros, that opens a spot in Kansas as starting 5. Similarly, in Houston, if all the guys start saying they're coming back, there's not a whole lot of roster spots for a McNeely. So you got to kind of pay attention to who's where and who's on first and all of that. I think he's a great fit in Houston. I can't believe he's still not committed. DFW has given Houston Marcus Sasser, Cordell. You're going to love when he plays next year. I don't know if you quite count Killeen. It's south. It's closer, I guess, to Austin. Austin's given us great guys too, like Jamal Shed, Armani Brooks. I feel like this is the kind of kid that you could see end up at Houston because he's going to go to college for 1 year. He spent his high school elsewhere, and now he's looking to get back home for a year. Not unlike how Houston missed out on Derek Queen, who went to Maryland, right? Bennett Montverde for a while said he wanted to go home. I kind of see the same thing could happen with Liam McNeely if it all shakes out that way. Now, McDonald's All-American game, next year's Houston Cougars, all the guys can talk about in the projected O-line or redshirt kind of guys segments are all be playing on TV. And if you're looking at where you're going to watch your sports for the upcoming Houston Cougar seasons, or we're going to find them on baseball right now, softball right now, you got to go get Amazon Fire TV to do it, because Fire TV is your destination for sports. From live games to highlights to in-depth analysis, Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs as well as Fire Stick TV that can plug into your existing TV and provide access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend, college basketball tournament, Final Fours this upcoming weekend. You're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big and pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date in the world of sports, whether it's March Madness, the NBA, the MLB, and more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. All right, if we shift into football for a second, spring practices are among us. Guys are getting their reps, and Houston's looking to replace some really talented football players. I mean, Patrick Paul is moving up draft boards. I got a DM today about Jack Freeman was at a Dallas Cowboys pro day at Dallas Cowboys facilities and has a Houston Texans pro day later as well. We're going to work out with the coaches and the facilities there. Really cool opportunities for a lot of Houston Cougar offensive linemen out there. Speaking of which, if you're a want-to-be future Houston Cougar offensive lineman, the center, who we'll talk about in a moment, Pancake Hunter, Demetrius Hunter Jr., is having a football camp May 18th in West Orange. Stuff's out there on social media about, but Demetrius Hunter's camp is free. It is girls and boys ages 6 to 17. They are really just trying to get out there and have fun, teach football. West Orange, a little bit of a drive. You're in the city, but if you're out there east, make sure you go find your way on, get involved in the camp, go enjoy it, and learn some football as well. He is the projected starting center, and we'll get to him in a second. He is really talented. Just want to stress, really, really talented. David Dukwe and Peyton Dunn starting on the left side at tackle and guard, respectively. And this year, it looks like Tank Jenkins and Shamar Hovde-Lee will be starting on the right side at guard and tackle, respectively. That's what it looks like at the present moment. The starting offensive line would be if they'd go out and play a game this Saturday. David Dukwe, mentioned his favorite food is wings. It's going to be a trend there in a second. Is 6'6", 315. Did not play a whole lot last fall for Houston, but did play some at Western Kentucky in 2021. Played a lot more in 2021 than 2022. I thought it was interesting in looking at stuff. He says he's a mathematician. It's good to have a smart left tackle, at least. He's sitting there at left tackle, but 6'6", 315, long frame. At the left guard spot, Peyton Dunn said his favorite food is steak. 6'6", 325, 11 starts at left guard in 2022 at Louisiana Monroe. At Louisiana Monroe, he said that it was, I guess, posted out there that he was the most valuable offensive lineman in the program. Came to Houston last year, didn't get to play a whole lot. He was a rotational guy some last year, and it looks like he'll get to start at left guard this season. I thought it was interesting. He said he's a karaoke guy. Which karaoke song? Question today, which karaoke song? I want to end on a Pancake because he's so good. Tank Jenkins is the vet here. Got approved playing another season. He started all of 2023, played a lot in 2022. He's 6'3", 330. He did have a year redshirt at Texas A&M for what it's worth. He was high school class of 2018. 2019. Now, I had to say, I feel like whenever, this has to be, I assume, in his 7th year, his last year at Houston. He has a bachelor's in retail and consumer sciences and says he wants to be an entrepreneur. I think he's pretty well set up to have a fairly successful next career whenever football ends. It's not ending yet. He's a Houston Cougar for a while. Shamar Habdi-Lee also says his favorite food was wings. Again, 3 of the starting 5 said their favorite food, that they could only eat one food forever and ever, would be wings, which I think should mean that there's some sort of NIL deal there. If you're listening to this, you can offer an NIL deal in wings. I think there's one there for you. Shamar is 6'4", 300. He played at Florida International, FIU, and I think it's funny that he said he's bad at Fortnite, because I'm also very, very bad at Fortnite. And I said, Houston-born teacher and coach, you want to upset a middle school student, call it fork knife, not Fortnite. All right, I think it's interesting looking at this, that Pancake Hunter at center, 6'2", 310 pounds, is by far and away the highest touted recruit in the bunch. He just started the one game last year because Jack Freeman was hurt, right? The concussion. For what it's worth, interesting talents and stuff. We mentioned each guy. Pancake can sing, played the tuba. Talented kid, to say the least. He's got the highest recruit ranking, which kind of bears weight when none of these guys have a ton of Power 5 experience. Tank Jenkins was recruited to 1A&M, signed there initially, transferred to Houston, and then played last year. That's kind of as high as it gets, right? Yes, Peyton Dunn had a lot of experience, successful experience at the Group of 5 level. And Dukeway, I would argue, also had some success. And Shamar Habdi-Lee has the frame and had some development. Like he had experience, not as much as Peyton, right? But it's interesting to see the leader on the team. You got Tank, obviously at right guard, but then very quickly could become Pancake Hunter just because he's kind of the guy that has A, the most talent, and then B, you're combining the most talented kid, at least in terms of prospect rankings, future prospects, etc. Like, what's he do after Houston? Most talented kid with the one that's vocally calling out how you're handling pass protections, how you're excelling to the next level in your run blocking, making calls and cues and those kinds of things at the line, all from the same guy, your most talented guy. And I think that's a good combination for this group. I do think it's interesting that we're looking at a group with so little experience. But on the whole, I think that's just part of the nature and turning over the beast. You just had a really experienced offensive line last year. I mean, we wanted to give Ruben Unije a hard time at times last year because, as much as I like the kid, he had a fairly rough year on the field. But truthfully, you're kind of wondering, would you kill for some of that experience back, if nothing else, right? Now, as I look at this group, I do think the issue is, as young as that starting group feels, again, Tank Jenkins is the only guy that's had extensive starting time at the Power 5 level, and that was just because Houston was Power 5 last season. I do worry that the moment anyone breaks a proverbial shoelace, as I say it, suddenly you're in a lot of trouble, right? There's the depth behind them gets thin on experience fast. You're hoping in this next transfer portal window you can maybe get another kid or two that wants to come in and live in Houston, be in a P5 program, whatever, to add some depth. Because right now, just you're gonna have a lineman injury, and no one wants to talk about it like that. But it's just too physically taxing a position not to. And while I think there are pros, both literally and just pros and cons figuratively, in this starting lineup, I do worry about the depth of those guys and what they look like if you start seeing guys wear down some. That's my big takeaway in the offensive line is I'm okay and comfortable with the starting 5. It's what happens after that. I will say linemen typically redshirt, and that's probably why they're not going to go to a bunch of guys, because you want to save their red shirts if you can. As we say that, I want to talk some about the guys that were redshirt last year, because I thought it was a really interesting prompt or question offered up in the comments on the YouTube page of the last video, actually. But before we get into that, FanDuel is America's number one sportsbook, and there's a lot of what we do here at FanDuel that is talking about what's the latest thing because the sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel makes it even more easy and exciting to get in on the action. Right now, you get $200 in bonus bets if your $5 bet hits it. $200 in bonus bets if you're betting on the tourney, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, whatever it is. I mean, frankly, they got the Houston win-loss totals next season set at 4.5. Go put something down on that. That $5 bet hits, you get $200 back in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. All right, there's a long list of folks that were redshirted last season, and I think it's interesting because it felt like some of these guys could have and should have played maybe. Houston had a crazy talented 2023 class, highlighted by a couple of the highest recruits to ever come through, and then didn't play a lot of them. And I got them organized by positions here. Admittedly, a lot of the star depth happens at wide receiver in the 2023 class, and with the depth Houston had last year, might as well redshirt them because there wasn't a whole lot of snaps to be played, a whole lot of balls to be caught and thrown and caught. I do want to start off with the quarterbacks, though. Indiana Wijwe and Caleb McMickle, I can pronounce that, I promise, are the two redshirted quarterbacks. I don't know how much of an impact either has next season. It sounds like you've got Lucas Coley still on the roster. You've got Zion Chris on the roster. I think Zion's going to make a real push to get some playing time because he's just so fast. He's just so fast, folks. He's just so fast. I would also look, Uela and what he did last year to earn the backup spot over Lucas Coley. Anyway, and then Donovan. I don't think Donovan cannot throw. Since Donovan cannot throw this spring, he's doing a lot of things to be involved and be a leader, etc. But truthfully, I think he's going to be the starter again. I don't know that anything's going to change on that for next season, but doesn't mean that Indiana or Caleb couldn't help us out down the line. At the running back spot, I really like Rashawn Sanford, and I really like the idea of him fitting into kind of a three-headed beast of a running back room. He was a redshirt freshman last year, did not get to play. He'll be able to be on the field more this year with how we know Nyagavi likes to run the counter and with how we know that Willie Fritz likes to run a hard-nosed, tough football team. I can see having those three backs all together, maybe not on the field at the same time, but having Rashawn Sanford involved in that's going to be really important. Also involved in the running back room, they're going to be able to play next year after being redshirt last year are Sergio Snyder and Steve Polk. I think Rashawn Sanford is going to make a very immediate impact. Snyder and Polk may make down the line impacts, right? In the defensive backfield, you got Johnsley Barbas, Jalen Sanford, Jamal Shaw, Michael Patterson, Bo Cluett, and Micah Sweats. I look at that group and think Jalen Stanford going to have a real impact next season as far as guys are coming off of their red shirts. Now, obviously, there's going to be other improvements made to the defensive backfield, both in the transfer window and other. I mean, just adding Latrell McCutcheon will be a big, big deal for Houston, right? Like adding him into the fold will be a big, big deal. And he wasn't redshirt last year. He was ineligible to play after transferring a second time. He went from Oklahoma to USC to follow Riley and is now from USC to here. Honestly, it feels like to play with his brother, but didn't get that cleared. Brother and closer to home, though, we all thought it did, and then it didn't. On the defensive line, Nadame Tucker, Hunter Jones, both impactful guys, but the biggest one is obviously going to be Justin Benton. Justin Benton played about as much as you could play last season and still get redshirted, and I was impressed. He was a freshman. He needs to gain good weight. He is a lineman. That means development takes some time, but with his hands and feet and hips, he's really good. Really, really good. Frankly, if you could get a lot of one-on-one work with he and Pancake in the off season, I mean, one-on-one each other. I mean, iron sharpens iron there. That's good work. That's good work. At the linebacker spot, Kamsi Arinze, I'll see if he makes it on the field much this year. I mean, he might be a special teams guy as a linebacker build. I don't know if he's going to be super impactful right now. I don't want to say that he'll never be, but right now. What's funny on the offensive line, we talked about the offensive line in the last segment. Cade Bowie and Tevin Shaw might actually be two of the earlier guys off the bench in terms of depth. I'll be interested to see how that shapes out, but they were both redshirted last season, so we'll see. The biggest and most impactful redshirts, though, and I saved them for last. Best for last. Jonah Wilson, Mikhail Harrison-Pilot headline a room of very talented redshirted wide receivers. Jonah played some last year before he obviously played less than the amount that would lose the red shirt. Had a big touchdown catch. I feel like the biggest thing of that was he just had great speed. It was a fade route down the seam. And I think it's hard to teach speed at some level. Once you got it, you got it. Impressed by him. Mikhail Harrison-Pilot is the guy here, though, and I've circled through positions and the receiver room, and could talk about Samuel Patchett, talk about Chance Prosperi, Hunter Takeman, Jet Runyon, who's actually a tight end, but he's a pass catching tight end, so he's there. J. Ryan Wallace, talented, will make an impact. Mikhail Harrison-Pilot is one of the highest ranked recruits to ever commit to University of Houston to play football. Some places have him at 4th, some places have him at 5th, but he is one of the highest to ever decide he's going to go play at Houston. And frankly, we're kind of lucky his parents played sports at Houston. I mean, that's really about the only reason that the national audience can figure out he came. Now, obviously, he came. He liked the city, liked the program, etc. But the national audience, I think, had some trouble figuring out, why did that get? Oh, I guess the dad. Oh, I guess the mom did it right. But MHP is incredibly talented, an incredibly crisp route runner, especially given his size and speed. I cannot stress enough that a 5'11", 195-pound kid, that's a strong built kid, right? That's what he was coming into Houston. What you don't typically see is kids that much strength on their bodies that are also that crisp a route runner. I mean, I mentioned Jonah Wilson runs fast. He's 6'1", 190. It's not his footwork and getting it out of breaks. Well, I'm sure it's gotten better while he's been at Houston. The thing that makes him elite is his speed. Mikhail has that too, but what makes him one of the best guys to ever come to Houston, the highest ranked prospects to ever come to Houston, is that he's got that size, that strength, that speed, and he's in and out of the in route or in and out of the out route or in and out of the post corner. His footwork is so good. I don't know. They redshirted him last year because I guess there was some injury along the way. It's like he was going to be hurt his freshman year, might as well redshirt. I get that. This team struggled at times last year to find excitement, to find big, game-changing kind of things. MHP's that kind of athlete. He can make those plays. He doesn't have the speed of Boogie. I mean, no one does. To make Boogie had the big game-winning touchdown catch against West Virginia. But MHP's got so much talent. I just don't know how you keep him on the field. I know Jonah Wilson's good. I know Sam Brown is good. I know Joe Manjack is good. I know there's only one football, but I just don't see how you keep it out of Mikhail Harrison-Pilot's hands this season. Got to be the most impactful guy coming off a red shirt in most people's eyes, I would imagine. You may think I'm wrong, and if you think I'm wrong, tell me in the comments down below. If you have a question, that entire last segment was prompted by a listener question that I thought was a good one worth investigating on a YouTube comment. So shouts to that. Obviously, if you want to throw in your own comments, feel free. We'll address them as we can. Maybe get a whole segment if they're good, if they warrant a whole segment. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team, our Houston Cougars, every day. Go Cougs.